this wasn't supposed to be the story. Indiana Fever won the game. Aaliyah Boston played great. The team got the result. And somehow, almost nobody cared because by the end of the night, people weren't talking about the scoreboard. They were talking about empty seats. And not just a few empty seats either. Photos started spreading online, showing noticeable gaps inside the arena. Fans started posting videos. Ticket screenshots started circulating. Reports started getting attention, claiming more than 3,200 seats sat empty for what became the lowest regular season attendance game of the Caitlin Clark era. And suddenly this stopped feeling like a normal injury absence and started becoming something much bigger than basketball, because the detail that really made people angry wasn't that Caitlin Clark missed the game, it was when they found out. According to reactions afterward, fans only learned Clark wouldn't play shortly before tip-off, and once that happened, frustration exploded. People posted that they traveled long distances. Others said they bought tickets specifically for Clark. Some even started saying this is exactly why they waited to buy tickets this season in the first place. Then Stephanie White addressed it. Clark reportedly woke up with stiffness and soreness in her back. The team wanted to be cautious. No reason to take chances this early. Okay, fair. Except that explanation didn't end the conversation. It started a completely different one because fans immediately started asking questions about timing, updates, communication, and whether people should have known sooner if treatment and caution were already part of the discussion. And now Fever fans are asking something that might matter more than one missed game. Did Indiana lose more than attendance that night, or did they lose trust? And honestly, injuries weren't what made this story explode. The timing did, because fans understand players missing games. That happens. Nobody wants Caitlin Clark forced onto the floor if something doesn't feel right physically. Most people would agree protecting your franchise player matters more than one regular season game, but what fans don't handle well is feeling surprised after already spending money. That's where this situation started feeling different. People started posting reactions saying they traveled for this game. Others said they built entire trips around seeing Clark play. And once those reactions started stacking up online, the conversation immediately moved away from basketball. Nobody cared who started. Nobody cared about rotations. Nobody cared that Indiana actually won. Everybody was asking the same thing. When did the team know? Then the empty seat photos started spreading, and honestly, television didn't fully show it. People inside the arena started posting angles showing noticeable gaps throughout sections. Fans pointed at ticket prices reportedly falling late and still not moving. And suddenly, people started treating attendance like a message instead of coincidence. Not, we're mad she sat. More like, well, we don't like how this was handled. That's what made this feel bigger than one game, because this wasn't random. Frustration. This felt emotional. People saying this is why they waited to buy tickets. People saying they stopped trusting game status. Updates. People saying they wanted more transparency, and whether those reactions are fair or not. Once fans start talking about trust instead of wins and losses, organizations usually pay attention. Meanwhile, on the court, Indiana actually took care of business. Aaliyah Boston showed up. The Fever got the win, but somehow none of that became the headline, because then Stephanie White explained what happened with Clark's back. And instead of calming people down, the questions somehow got even louder, because once Stephanie White finally spoke, fans expected answers. Instead, people started analyzing every word. White explained that Caitlin Clark woke up with stiffness and soreness in her back. She said Clark had been getting treatment and the team simply didn't want to take chances. She also said they didn't expect it to become something ongoing, and honestly, taken by itself, that explanation sounds completely reasonable, but by that point, fans weren't reacting to the injury anymore. They were reacting to the timeline, because once people heard there had already been treatment happening and discussions around caution, the questions immediately changed. If treatment was already happening, if caution was already being considered, then why did fans only find out so late? That became the center of the conversation. And once social media starts focusing on timing, everything gets magnified. People started comparing old updates. People started bringing up previous day-to-day situations. People started debating whether this was simply careful player management or whether communication could have been handled better. Again, most reactions weren't saying Clark should have played. Most people weren't asking for risk. What they were asking for was clarity. Then another uncomfortable reality started becoming obvious. Without Caitlin Clark, The atmosphere felt completely different. Indiana won. Aaliyah Boston had a huge game. The team got the result, and somehow the energy around the night still felt flat. That's not criticism of the team. That's just reality. Now, because Caitlin Clark has become bigger than a normal player absence, she changes ticket demand, attention, expectations. People don't always plan around the matchup anymore. Sometimes they plan around one player, and that's why this story got bigger than basketball. Indiana wasn't defending a lineup decision anymore. They were defending trust. And honestly, this is where the conversation started becoming bigger than one injury. Report, because empty seats happen, players. Missed games, bad attendance nights happen, but when fans start openly saying they don't trust updates anymore, that's a completely different problem. That's no longer basketball. That becomes perception, because a lot of reactions after this game didn't sound like people upset Caitlin Clark rested. They sounded like people who felt blindsided, people saying they planned around this, people saying they spent money expecting to see Clark, people saying they delayed buying tickets because they weren't confident in availability updates, and whether that criticism is fair or unfair. Once enough, people start repeating the same concern. Organizations usually start paying attention. At the same time, though, there's another side to this conversation. If Indiana truly believes Clark's back needed rest, then sitting her was probably still the correct basketball decision. Nobody wants to force one game and create a bigger problem later. Nobody wants a short-term decision becoming a long-term issue, and fans probably don't want that either once emotions cool down. But that doesn't automatically remove the communication questions, because this game exposed something people maybe weren't talking about enough before. The Fever aren't operating under normal expectations anymore. Every update becomes news. Every attendance number becomes a discussion. Every injury report gets dissected, and every decision involving Caitlin Clark suddenly carries extra weight because people aren't treating her like a normal player. She's become the event that changes everything. And after this game, people started realizing something uncomfortable. When Caitlin Clark doesn't play, the conversation doesn't disappear. Sometimes it gets even louder, but here's where this whole thing gets interesting, because this might actually become a test of something bigger than attendance: credibility. Whether Caitlin Clark is hurt, not whether Stephanie White made the correct basketball decision, but whether fans believe what they're hearing. Because once trust starts becoming part of sports conversations, every future update suddenly gets viewed differently. That's just how fans work. The next time Clark is listed day to day, people will remember this. The next time tickets start selling, people will remember this. The next time there's a late scratch, people will remember this. That's why reactions felt so strong after this game. Not because of one missed night, because people started acting like this confirmed concerns they already had. And again, Indiana may have done absolutely the right thing medically. That can be true. Protecting Clark can be correct. Being cautious can be correct, but fans can still want earlier communication. At the same time, those ideas don't actually conflict. That's the weird part. This doesn't have to be good guys versus bad guys. It might simply be expectations changing faster than organizations are adapting, because Caitlin Clark created something unusual. People aren't treating these games like normal sports events anymore. Families plan around them, people travel, people save money, people circle dates. That changes the pressure, and now Indiana might be learning something difficult. Winning games matters, but keeping fan trust matters too. And after this game, people aren't waiting for the next score, they're waiting for the next update. And honestly, that might end up being the strangest part of this entire story. Indiana won. Aaliyah Boston played great. The team handled business, and somehow almost none of that became the conversation afterward, because the second those empty seat photos started spreading, the story changed. It became about communication, that became about expectations, it became about what happens when one player becomes bigger than a normal game experience. And whether people agree with the reaction or not, the reaction happened. Fans noticed, fans responded, and now people are paying closer attention than before. At the same time, protecting Caitlin Clark if something felt wrong physically is probably still the correct basketball decision. That shouldn't get lost. No regular season game is worth creating. A bigger issue later, but fans also made something clear. They're not asking for miracles. They're not asking players to ignore injuries. A lot of them seem to be asking for something simpler. Tell us sooner. That's the conversation now. And moving forward, Indiana is probably going to feel more pressure every time there's an injury update involving Caitlin Clark, because after this game, People aren't just watching the court anymore. They're watching how the information gets handled too. Now I want to hear from you. Were fans justified being frustrated after finding out so late? Did Indiana handle the communication the wrong way? Or are people turning one missed game into something bigger than it really is? And one more question. Do those empty seats actually mean something long term? Or was this simply bad timing and emotions? Drop your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because we've got a lot more Caitlin Clark and WNBA coverage coming. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.